Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Our final Packers preseason game on Saturday. The Packers picking up a victory against Seattle. So if you worry about wins or losses in the preseason, first of all, chill. Second of all, Packers had a winning record in the preseason. So there you go, 2-1. That obviously means Super Bowl here. But now it's deadline. Now it's some tough decisions here because the Packers, by tomorrow afternoon, have to figure out who is going to be on their initial 53-man roster. We say initial because why? There's a really good chance it could change before they play their Week 1 game against the Detroit Lions. There's a very good chance it could change, whether it's they add some dudes on the waiver wire that were cut from other teams, or just other stuff. Maybe some trades like we saw yesterday. That the Packers last night sending a 6th-round pick to the Philadelphia Eagles for offensive lineman Darian Kinnard. So, let's do some predictions, shall we? My one and only roster projection for the Packers. Posted it up yesterday on the way down to Milwaukee. It's obviously already wrong because I didn't have them trading for Darian. So, I mean, I got one wrong already. But I guess if I could alter it a little bit, I'll throw in the player who I think maybe I would take out and put Darian into this equation. So, quarterbacks, it's pretty simple. It's Jordan Love and Malik Willis. That's who I'm rolling with for that one. Jordan Love, Malik Willis. It's going to be interesting to see who makes the practice squad between Sean Clifford or it could be their Elgersma. Do they want to go with a little bit more of the proven product? Do they want to go with the potential? That one's going to be interesting to see what direction they go to. But in terms of active roster, the 53-man roster, it's Jordan Love and it's Malik Willis. Running backs here, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept somebody like Johnson and moved on from whether it was Chris Brooks or Emmanuel Wilson. But if we use a little bit of detective work here and try to kind of figure some things out, you can kind of look at that last preseason game, and Emmanuel Wilson got a few more snaps than Brooks in that, and it kind of gave the impression that, Brooks's spot is fairly secure. Maybe they were trying to give a little bit more of a tryout, if you will, of an interview with Emmanuel Wilson. But I think they run it back with Jacobs, with Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks, and Marshawn Lloyd gets put on the injured reserve. But would I be surprised if they decide to go a different route? It wouldn't surprise me too much. But I think they go with Jacobs, Wilson, and Chris Brooks. But, hey, maybe they want to go a little bit of a different route and you're like, hey, we've tried the Emmanuel Wilson for the last couple of years. We thank you for your service, but we're just going to go a little bit of a different route here. Or same with Chris Brooks. Who knows? Maybe it is Amar Johnson then. Tight ends. This could be an interesting one here too. The question so we hear Goody every year when it comes to these cut downs. And they get to the final couple spots here, and they don't necessarily have a set number for each position group. They probably have a range of what they like to keep, but a lot of times it'll be a numbers game, and one guy might make it over another, and it ends up being that they carry a few more at that position over another one because they want to hold on to that player. So it's not always like, all right, 3 running backs and 5 wide receivers. It's not always cut and dry like that. And tight end to me is going to be a little interesting because we know the top two. It's Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. After that, the question is going to be, are they going to carry 3 or 4? I think before camp opened, Ben Sims was probably the 3rd tight end on the depth chart. But John Fitzpatrick has had a very good camp, a very solid camp. And he has put himself in that position to be the 3rd tight end. And so it may come down to a numbers game when it's all said and done with the tight end. Do they keep Sims and Fitzpatrick, or do they just keep one? And did Fitzpatrick's camp, for as well as it was, for as awesome as it went, was that enough to keep him? Or are they going to go with keep Sims as that 3rd tight end? So that's going to be an interesting one to kind of follow along here when cutdowns go tomorrow. That one could be just a straight-up numbers game. I think they maybe want to keep 4, Fitzpatrick, special teams, and such. But if they need a spot for another position group, that's where they may only keep 3 tight ends then. We'll see. But wide receivers. Obviously, I think the big question here is how many. And if it is 6, is it Malik Heath or Mecole Hardman? In the other wrinkle in this thing could be Savion Williams, who we have not seen lately. Now, I haven't really seen any talk about this, but let's say Green Bay decides to put, okay, Savion, we haven't seen you in the preseason. We're just going to put you on the injured reserve and then, able to keep another receiver that way. That could be a dicey one here too. Because remember, you only got a certain amount of guys that you could designate for return. But possibly, maybe they do something like that, and then that allows them to keep Mecole Hardman and Malik Heath here. But, for my prediction here, I went Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, and I went with Malik Heath. And part of that was, I don't think Mecole Hardman did anything absolutely spectacular in these preseason games to get himself a job. You look at that last game, Malik Heath got the start, got a few reps at the beginning, and kind of the same with the Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson situation. Maybe kind of gave us a glimpse of like, okay, the Packers believe that Malik Heath is higher on the quote-unquote depth chart than Mecole Hardman. Now, the difference is obviously Mecole Hardman can be a punt returner, can help you out in special teams in those areas. Malik Heath, he's not a returner. So what do you value more? Ultimately, just in my opinion and my prediction, I think Malik Heath is going to be the guy that wins a job over Mecole Hardman. But if they want to keep him just strictly as their punt returner, then obviously I think it's going to be him over Malik Heath. But I just, looking at preseason, looking at how the practices and training camp went, I'm gonna stick with my prediction of Malik Heath. Offensive line. Now this is obviously going to be different with the trade, but you've got 7 locks on this thing. 7 clear-cut locks in the offensive line. Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Alton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, and the second-round pick, Anthony Bell, right? I mean, those are straight-up locks. We can look at Anthony Belton and say, well, there's been some issues, and yeah, there has been, but he's a second-round pick, and they're not going to move on from him. So there's 7 locks there. Now the question becomes, all right, how many more do we keep? 8, 9, 10? And are those really, are they good has any of those guys done enough to win a job? Well, obviously they didn't feel great about 8, 9, 10. Because I got them keeping 10, okay? And obviously they didn't feel great about their options 8 through 10. So that's why they traded for Darian. He is number 8. So he's going to be on this team. Now the question is going to be 9 through 10. Do they keep one more? Do they keep 2 more? I've got him keeping Jacob Monk, although I know he's got a hamstring injury. So, again, could that be an injured reserve sort of thing to begin the season? We'll see. A lot's going to depend on how they feel about his return. Maybe Smith can get a crack in there if they decide to move on from Monk, though, too, or he's put on the injured reserve. But in this case, I got him keeping Monk, and then I think it comes down to either Donovan Jennings or Kadeem Telford. I'm going to go with they keep Donovan Jennings. Now, both of them haven't really lit the world on fire. And if either one of those guys gets extended playing time, you're probably not feeling the greatest. But I think it's also telling when you look at the joint practice, Donovan Jennings was getting in reps with the ones with the 2-minute drill over Telford. And with the trade of Darian, who is a guard tackle, that's a similar, it's the same as Kadeem Telford, where he's like a guard tackle, whereas Jennings is guard and then getting some reps at center. So if I could change it, if I could edit it, I'm taking out Telford, and then I'm adding their new trade acquisition with Darian for the offensive line. So that's my offensive predictions. Defense. I'll be honest, I was looking at the defensive line here, and I'm not confident that they're going to keep all these defensive linemen that I'm going to put on here. I'm not confident in this. But I got 10. You got your four locks, which are your 4 starters. Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary, Van Ness. I do think Carl Brooks makes it. I do think Stackhouse makes it. I think Warren Brinson makes it. I think Sorrell makes it. Again, he is going to be another one where it's like, okay, do they put him on the injured reserve? But you hear him talk, and he doesn't really feel like he was going to be out long with that knee injury. And remember, they open up their season 2 weeks from yesterday. So you still got a little time. So that's 8. They need at least one more defensive ends if they want to continue with their rotation. So it's between Bretton Cox and Enagbare, in my opinion. Well, I got them keeping both, but I wouldn't be surprised if they decide just to keep 9 and just keep either Cox or Enagbare if they go that route. The other one in here is Colby Wooden. Colby Wooden got a lot of playing time. If they decide to keep him, I guess I wouldn't be surprised either. But it's a numbers game for me, and this is who I have them keeping: Clark, Wyatt, Gary, Van Ness, Brooks, Stackhouse, Brinson, Sorrell. And I did have them keep Bretton Cox Jr. and Enagbare. But I wouldn't be surprised if they only keep one of those final 2. Linebackers, it's Walker, it's Cooper, it's McDuffie, it's Hopper, and I went with Welch over Simmons. Simmons looks like Tarzan, maybe plays a little bit like Jane in some aspects. Great athletes. It wasn't all there in the preseason. We can't ignore the first 2 games of the preseason where he struggled a little bit. Welch has been a consistent special teams contributor. And I would say he had some solid play defensively in the preseason. Watching that game on Saturday, he made a couple nice reads. Brought down the ball carrier at the line of scrimmage or shortly past the line of scrimmage. I don't see them carrying 6 linebackers unless they decide to carry 6 linebackers and take away one of those defensive linemen. But these are the linebackers I'm rolling with. Walker, Cooper, McDuffie, Hopper, and Welch. Corner is also going to be an intriguing position on what Green Bay decides to do here in terms of a numbers one. And the kicker is Javon Bullard. And I just realized looking at this, don't try to do or type out a roster projection on your phone when you're on a bus. Holy moly, the spelling errors. I apologize. Predictive text. But the corner. Nixon, Valentine, Hobbs. Sign, seal, deliver. I'm assuming Hobbs is going to be ready for week 1. I'm not putting him on the injured reserve. So after that, it's like, okay, how many more corners? And you factor in the Javon Bullard because he's going to be your slot nickel corner. So you have a little versatility there. He's your backup safety, but he's also your slot nickel corner. When I've done these, I've always liked to keep like 6 corners. But since Javon Bullard is part of that, I only have 2 more corners on this list. Kalen King and Bo Melton. Would I be shocked if they decide to keep Micah Robinson? No. Would I be shocked if they decide to keep Kamal Hayden? No. Or Ballentine? No, I wouldn't. But for this, again, it's a numbers game. I went with those 5, and then you add in Javon Bullard, who is your slot nickel. That's your 6. And then safety-wise, I've got 5. Your obvious ones, it's Xavier McKinney, it's Evan Williams. Then you throw in Javon Bullard. Oladapo, I thought, had a solid preseason. Zane Anderson's also on there. They like him. Plus, you get some special teams snaps with him. Specialists are easy. McManus, Whalen, and Orzak. So that's your 53. Marshawn Lloyd's on the injured reserve. Injured list. I did put that on there too. So that's my predictions. Probably not going to be 100% right. I'd be shocked. Obviously, it's not because they already made a trade in that. So, what do you think is the hardest group, position to figure out that the Packers, that LaFleur, that Goody have to figure out? Surveyor Sam with a quick text. I'll give you a few. Going to go with the quarterback, third quarterback, or the practice squad quarterback, the corner between King, Hayden, and Robinson, O-line between Monk and Jennings with the trade of the guy from Philly. Steve with an interesting text here. We've got, Steve says, who do you think is the player that disappointed the most in preseason and the player that surprised the most in preseason? I am going to go, okay, for disappointment, and I'm going to take away guys who were injured because that's disappointing. Like Savion Williams, I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see him really in preseason. So that's a disappointment. I'm going to take away Aaron Banks from that too because it's disappointing. We didn't get to see a whole lot of them injured. So taking injuries away, if we take the injuries off the table, I think the player that was maybe a little disappointing I might have just not to cop out or make it easy. I'm gonna go Simmons. I'm gonna go Isaiah Simmons, and I thought he had a chance, and maybe he still does. We don't know him, but I thought he had a chance to possibly make this team as like the 4th linebacker. Getting into a good situation, we heard all the right stuff, focusing just on linebacker, not a linebacker safety hybrid. Got to just focus right on that. And I think it was a fairly disappointing performance in at least the first couple games of the preseason and such. So, and I think that kind of, you factor in with how well Hopper played. Yeah, I would go Simmons, and then on the flip side, it's kind of the same group, but the player that surprised me the most is Hopper. Third-round pick from last year. Didn't really hear a whole lot about him last year, even though a third-round pick. I mean, come on now. Third-rounders are expected to play. And last year, I remember we were talking about this, but last year, it was, okay, that kind of seems like a special teams pick. A little raw yet, maybe strictly special teams in the first year, rookie year. And then, they re-signed McDuffie, you got Cooper, you got Quay Walker, then they bring in Simmons, and it just kind of felt like, maybe Hopper's going to be out. But the dude played awesome, and he was fantastic. And for somebody who's kind of built like an Isaiah Simmons, Hopper played like I think a lot of people expected that Simmons would play like. So I think for me, it's got to be Hopper as the guy that impressed me the most in this preseason. Maybe a couple of honorable mentions I'll throw in here. And really maybe he should be because he is a first-round pick. Both of them, actually. But Jordan Morgan, for how well he played in his opportunities, I mean, the guy dominated in preseason at left tackle. And maybe part of it for me is because I just assumed that he was probably going to be a guard. It felt like that's what Green Bay was trying to do, was just to make him a guard. And the fact that he played so well at left tackle. I mean, you go back to last year when he was drafted, it was like, maybe he's better suited to play guard in the NFL. And the Packers were like, no, we're going to try him at left tackle. Then they pretty much just practiced him primarily at guard his rookie year until he got hurt. And then Walker gets hurt. So Morgan goes in, and the guy played, and I know it's just preseason and such, but this is all we have to really go on. The guy graded out incredibly well at left tackle to where it's now a topic of debate. Should he be the starting left tackle? So I'd throw him on there as an honorable mention. Again, some probably won't because that's what you should expect from a first rounder. And yes, you are right. But I'm coming at it from an angle of he did it at left tackle when we were kind of all getting trained a little bit like, okay, maybe he's going to be a guard. They're going to kick him inside. The other one I'd probably throw out there was probably, this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to go Matthew Golden. And maybe it's just because we've been so accustomed to first rounders not always necessarily being contributors right away. You know what I mean? Like, day one contributors, day one, like, oh yeah. Like, I mean, let's face it. Let's call it what it is. The last how many years, you can make the case that Green Bay has gotten instant contributions from like second, third, fourth, fifth rounders, more so than their first round picks. I don't think I'm talking crazy there. And I don't know what Matthew Golden is going to do this year. But I don't know of another first rounder off the top of my head that is going to be coming into this season, into this regular season, with as much excitement or has played so well in the preseason that has gotten the expectations a little bit high, maybe a little bit higher than we first thought. I mean, Matthew Golden has looked the part in preseason. He has looked like he is ready to go for the regular season and that he is going to be a focal part of this offense. When was the last time? The last player that was drafted in the first round for the Packers that we kind of thought that heading into the regular season. Yes, Quay Walker was a starter right away. But I don't know if he was at the level of like excitement, enthusiasm that we've got with Matthew Golden right now. That has played incredibly well, that has showed off, however you want to say it, in the preseason. So another honorable mention I'm going is Matthew Golden, just because it's like maybe we've been trained so much over the last few years that first rounders might not produce a whole lot right away. I don't know about Matthew Golden now, man. Maybe he's going to get, maybe the dude's going to ball out this year. I'm excited to see him out there. I really am. Like, I think maybe I'm getting too amped up, too excited, setting the bar incredibly high. But I think this kid's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to see him in action. I can't wait to see him when games are, when games count. And the thing is, too, with Love being at quarterback, Golden's going to get opportunities. He's going to get chances, right? There's not going to be this whole, and yes, you could take it as a little bit of a knock on Rodgers, whatever. There's not going to be this whole, you got to earn my trust sort of thing. Yeah, I'm sure there's a varying level of that where every new wide receiver has to earn that from that quarterback and such. But I don't think there's going to be this, like, you drop a pass, you're shunned for 2 games ordeal. Golden's going to get some golden chances, pun intended. I did that on purpose. I apologize. And I can't wait to see it in action.